I'm going to tell everybody in school, if you want to see my dad on YouTube, to say on it, the tape never lies. Go shit in the hat.
Yes.
I love balls.
For Lord Cars.
Hear ye, hear ye. Man to the people.
You know it's Cars Keys. Let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our takes like car thieves. Break down, we study tape and thrive.
Analytical preparation, that's what Cars is given. Cars don't discriminate, teaching the men and women. Each and every week, Bears nerd to get your focus. Never manipulating stats, lore, cars and hocus pocus. Cars Keys, they never lost. Checking source, never gonna find a better scouting report. Cars going live with the smartest man, my bestie. Deciphering holes on the defense like Getsy. New show, uniforms, orange with the dark sea. Tape never lies, patrons, this is Cars
You know
Keys.
it's Cars Keys. Let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our takes like car thieves. Break down, we study tape and thrive. We gotta break down tape like detectives. No hot takes, just real football perspectives. The Bears nerd dropping science on his terms. TTNL giving Bears press like a perm. Other networks is off with the heads. Stats plus film equals football cred. Analysis like Data Ted tries to shred. McCaskey's letting me cake, we keep the 100 crew fed. Cars Keys, let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our takes like car thieves. Break down, we study tape and thrive. Lord Hines in his car, fill up a goblet. Lord Hines in his car, fill up a goblet.
I don't know why we get that delayed pause. We'll just blame Claudio. Cars Keys, Season 2, Episode 27. Just think, guys, 11 more games to go. My guy and I were just talking about this, and neither one of us seemed too happy about it. But we're going to see if we can talk you off the ledge tonight. Let me bring out my guy. There he is.
Off the ledge, or are we basically gonna?
Let's just go over together. Let's just
Lemmings
grab hands
jump
and
this
fucking
whole
jump.
thing. Yeah, I mean, what in the hell? God, it was so depressing. You watch from go, and you're like, hey, this is week 1 through 3 all over again in one fell swoop. We have lost all momentum and everything that we the good that we did. Richard, I don't even want to think about Draft Mob anymore. I mean,
that's the bad part, you know what I mean? And it's hard to think about, but that's where we're at.
No one's wrong for thinking it. I mean, it's week 7. This season is over. The excitement has moved to, is it going to be us at the number 1 slot?
Yeah.
And already the next sure thing at quarterbacks, Wart. I think it makes complete sense that Notre Dame game happened with the Bears game right on top of it, to just punch us all in the face and ruin all the excitement that we may have had.
Yeah, and like I said, but he goes out and throws 6 or 7 touchdowns. We know how it goes.
Oh,
same thing with Justin. Goes out and plays extremely well versus the Commanders, and now 85% of the fan base says that he sucks, which again, there's warts there, but I'm not worried about his character. Whereas I think you can question character issues with the kid that you were just talking about that we didn't want to talk about tonight. But yeah.
Well, you're right, and we won't. But I just think it's kind of the final kick in the nuts would be to have this bad of a season, and everyone who's been telling like every prognosticator has continually said how it's a sure thing, and for him to like lose that status as we're about to draft him,
Yeah.
it just makes so much sense.
Yeah. I don't think I think he's still going number one.
Oh, absolutely.
No matter what. But yeah, it causes concern, as it should. And this is why these guys get paid the way they do. I would love to be a fly on the wall for some of those talks to see what they say. But when you say that details matter, Cars, this is exactly what we're talking about, because they matter even more in this situation. If you're proceeding and you have the number one pick, you have to make sure. I mean, Jalen Carter's issues notwithstanding, he very well could be a Chicago Bear right now if he wouldn't have had that issue at Georgia. That kind of changed everything. I remembered Riley and I went to the Bulls game the night before. We were on our way home and saw that all hell had broken loose with Jalen Carter, and they're like, wow, that was the dude that you were talking about. Maybe the Bears are just going to stand pat and take that guy number one overall. But
everything can change in a heartbeat, except unfortunately our beloved franchise. Other teams pivot, other teams make adjustments, other teams see something that is working and they stick with it.
Imagine that.
And the guilt I had in Twitter of tweeting our records since Ditka and how considerably worse it has gotten, as decades have gone. We don't pivot. Like, there is no pivot.
No.
We just keep going forward to we're just going forward to, we just need a good running game and a good middle linebacker, and nothing has changed.
It's the same thing every single year, and it's nauseating, but it's who we are, and I know you well enough to know that we're not moving off of this team. They go out and win a couple, we'll start to talk ourselves back into some positivity. But I told Kenneth Davis last night, I'm going to be able to tell very, very quickly in the postseason presser, when Kevin Warren gets up there to speak, I'm going to be able to tell an awful lot on the direction that this franchise is going to be heading after 2023. Because if they get up there and there's more word salad of collaboration and synergy and all of that bullshit that comes out of Hallis Hall. I mean, I don't know. Did you see the Olin Kreutz on with Cap?
No, I didn't.
He said it, and he said it perfectly. He's like, Chicago is a tough place to play, but you want to know what's harder? It's hard to win in that building the way that they operate. That's the number one issue.
And so, not that I disagree with you, Shane, about the Warren moment, but it's going to tell me everything that I need to know if it takes until the end of the season for that sort of thing to come on.
I agree.
No, but I mean, like, you're absolutely right, because
but I'm even saying beyond. He can go out and he can go out and fire Flus in 2 weeks, and I still don't want the word salad bullshit that we get. They come up with a phrase, and that's what we're going to cram down these mouth-breathing idiots that root for us every year. That's what we're going to cram down their throats, and everybody's going to buy in because we're all on the same page, and we know that it's bullshit.
Well, yes. And so I think no matter when it happens, but I think that the biggest warning sign for me is going to be if that happens after week 17 and not after week 7, not after week 8. When you had this momentum and for the Denver loss, as bad as it was, and it should have been a win, you carried some of that momentum over offensively. And even with Justin Jefferson out, that was a very aggressive defense that they ran this last time. They were flying. You could see some of those things that we had waited for. But when you keep regressing, when you keep going back to the old ways, um, you lose all hope. And the
Yeah.
hard part is, I don't think the positional coaches have done a bad job. Like, look at the way that the corners have come along. Look at the way that the offensive line and all of its shuffling has come along. Like the way we saw Dexter, except not last week because for whatever reason he had his best game, and then we decided to not play him this last week. Like the young guys are developing, and we are a more talented team than we were last year. But the guys who call the plays are completely ruining it for everybody.
Yeah, it makes no sense. And I know we're going to get into some of the numbers here in a second, but it's just like Kenneth said, and you're a better team. You're a better roster, but you're worse in the win column overall. And I mean, that says everything. And I mean, does Justin Fields want to be here? I think that's a thing that you legitimately have to ask. Does his, management want him in Chicago? Yeah,
I mean, right now we don't want to be here to talk about it because of how long we've been through it. So for him to be 2.5 years in, yeah, I think it's a fair thing, and it's sorry to fill you on that one, but I think it's a real statement right now. We don't have a great reputation to begin with. Overall, we've been cheap with players. The Olin Kreutz story of how badly they screwed him over when they were trying to hire him as coaching, in the staff. We don't we already don't have the best reputation. And when you're at this moment, as we were saying kind of in text earlier, it's shocking that this franchise could ruin Justin Fields. And I think the opposite of that is, I don't necessarily think that they ruined him. I think they ruined his chance to hit it and become the player, but they never did anything to develop, the warmth.
right.
He still is who he was at Ohio State. He's better when he's got longer time to hold on to the ball and make a decision. That's not just on him. That
Yep.
is on this staff. And God, it's just at some point, if we get up to the number one pick and it becomes Eli Manning all over again, refusing to go to the Chargers because of what the franchise is, I don't know that I could blame
Yeah.
anybody at this point.
Yeah, I'm not there. I don't think that that's going to happen just because of money
I know.
alone.
I'm
Yeah,
just
but
saying
no, I get it.
I
I
wouldn't
get
be
it. Yeah,
shocked.
I get
Yeah.
it. I totally get it. Luke, I don't know what you don't agree with. Throw it in the chat so we can address what you disagree with. I'm not quite sure because we're talking quite a bit. So, but yeah, man, you wanna jump into it?
So this is going to be more conversational, but the one thing that I wanted to sit down and show is, I look at this and it just appalled me. We ran one play action in the first half against Minnesota. One. We had run 22 total play actions the previous 2 weeks. So you're averaging 11. And there's a lot to digest in the fact that for whatever reason, Getsy in the second half completely goes away from the play action. But you ran one. And so that's where we've been saying for weeks now.
Yeah.
Where Justin Fields is best and what helps him out so much is play action. And so you start off with this game plan where you don't have it at all. And it just doesn't make any sense. The last 2 weeks, you did a lot more 12. You did a lot more 13 looks, 21 looks. You're talking multiple tight ends, multiple running backs. First 3 weeks, We were like 90% 11.
Yep.
Guess what we went back to? 11. Because most of
Wow.
those 12s and 13s came with Bagent in.
Yep.
And when you look at this, when you're running and you ran 24 plays out of the 12, most of those are runs. You are the most transparent team. You are the most transparent players in scheme. If you're going to be in 11, you're going to be run. If you're going to be in the 12, or excuse me, if you're going to be 11, you're going to pass. If you're going to be in the 12, you're going to run. Time and time again. That's it. 4 of your 6 play action calls came from the 12. Like, what are we doing? What if you're going to be an 11 team, you run play action out of that. You establish the run with Foreman.
It's fundamental football, Cars. That's the thing that gets to me. This is the fucking NFL, and they're making it way harder than it needs to be. Matt Eberflus, your head coach, comes out and when they're asking, "Hey, what changes for you when you have to prepare a game plan with Tyson Bagent?" And goes, "Well, you have to do what your quarterback is good at." And I'm like, "What do you chalk one up for the liar again?" It's complete and utter nonsense. But just Luke, thanks for chiming back in. I would agree with you guys on most things, but I don't think we have anyone on the roster who is really a better player this year than they were last year. Not a fan of coaching staff as a whole.
Tyree Carter is night and day different from the player he was earlier. Everyone's favorite punching bag, Cole Kmet, is actually a better player. He's extremely important to the way the franchise is run. Dexter Jr. and Pickens have made flash plays all over the place.
DJ Moore's not bad, let's just throw that out there. But
Terrell Smith, but what Terrell was doing, Tyreek Stevenson has stepped up. We saw probably the best Brisker game that we've seen in a while this past week.
He needed one.
He absolutely needed it. You saw Tyreek Stevenson has made improvements. We're not seeing weeks 1 through 3.
Right.
There are still some flashes there. There are players that are playing better.
But I think what people need to realize, and I think, again, this is a trap that I'm not saying specifically Luke, but I think a lot of fans fall into, is they assume everybody is a finished project and there's not going to be any more improvement. Like Dexter to me is the classic case of that. He's so young in his football journey, and I know Phil is completely on the opposite end of the spectrum of where you and I are with him. I know that there's going to be peaks and valleys with him, but you're not. He is nowhere near finished product. They're looking at 2024, 2025, where he's going to, lay some of those foundational blocks this year. But that's part of a rebuild. That's a part that sucks about the rebuild, is you have to a fan base that shouldn't have to show patience. We have to show even more patience. And the bad part about it is the leaders of this franchise are so fucking inept that you have two assholes like you and I here, Cars, that are just saying like, run 12 personnel. We've said it all off season. Everybody in the media said it all off season. But these guys that are coming up with the game plan just don't get it. And
ESB is out. Possible? Who's one of your best run blockers, and your idea is to throw Tyler Scott out there 59% of the offensive snaps in that role. What are you thinking? There's the offensive line play is night and day better than what it was last year. Does it still have room to grow? Absolutely. Sure. And so, yeah, it's sometimes hard to see these things because I think as fans, we get so focused on the plays they don't make. I think we get focused on the plays where Dexter stands straight up. I mean, he has not been great. He's been brutal, but Larry Borum is in shape and playing better. Now that's a low bar, but they're getting something out of this kid that was an out of shape mess last year. There are improvements, whether we want to see them or not. The issue is the guys calling the plays on both sides of the ball. And
I'm right there with you, man.
You just you can't look at this game plan and say play action has been so good. It's been so important for our offense to get rolling in the first half and make things happen, and then go, they're not going to expect us to run it at, they're going to expect us to run it a lot. So we'll fool them by not running it at all. And you kind of keep seeing this over and over and over again. And they wanted to so pat themselves on the back after that Washington win. We saw how proudly they were showing the locker room video, and Flus talking about how nobody quit and they've all stayed together, and all this bull that they've been doing. It's gone. You have a more time to prepare, and your team looks worse.
Right. Yeah. So real quick, they're not going to promote a DC.
They hired another Trace Armstrong guy to help them break video down.
Yeah, but I mean, your defensive coordinator is Matt Eberflus, and that's
for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's what it's gonna. They're not gonna bring in a guy, and they're not gonna promote a guy when that's his MO. That's what he does. That's his thing.
Because
So
they believe that they're close. That's the one thing you keep taking away from all of these different points, is from a fan, for you and I to sit here and look and realize how far away we are. To take, as fans, it's so much easier to be Kool-Aid drinkers, right? And fall into, we're gonna be there. It's so close, we're there. But as fans, we can see it.
Yeah.
In the end, the similarities between Getsy and Nagy are glaring. Nagy wanted to be an 11 guy. That's all he wanted to run. That's because that's what he runs in Kansas City. And he just thought minus Tyreek Hill and minus Travis Kelce, he could do the same thing here. That's just not the way our roster is built. And for teams that are, when you look at, if you just look at why are we not using Robert Tonyan more? I'm not saying he is a world beater, but it changes the way that defenses approach us.
But he's a guy that can stretch the defense. He has that ability. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We talked about maybe we'll see some seam routes to the tight end, and then you have your intermediate routes where DJ Moore and where Cole Kmet can actually make some impact. They don't do it.
I mean, you had one target to DJ Moore. Now there were several misses to Justin, and I don't want to take away from that. But I don't if you're sitting here and as an offensive coordinator, you are 24 games, you're coming into your 24th game as your offensive coordinator. What do we do well? Run the ball.
And lose.
It's going to be fascinating to watch this game, because for once the game plan cannot be, well, if we screw all of this up, Justin's legs will save us.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to attack differently. But there's nothing we do well. You've had one of the fifth leading receiver and the leading touchdown receiver, and your idea is to get him the ball one time. Force feed him against a defensive backfield that cannot cannot stop him.
Well, that's the thing right there, Cars. We saw the play 6.9 seconds, him holding the ball. DJ Moore was wide open on a curl route, wide open immediately. And Adam Hogue was talking about what they have. What did he say? They have him on tape screaming 11 times during that play. Throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball, just screaming it. And that's where you're at. And that doesn't mean that I don't believe in the ability of Justin Fields, but that's me telling you that is a continued issue that he has had in college, that he has had in 2 previous seasons in the pros. Is that going to change with a new head coach? Is that going to change in year 4?
No.
Exactly. It's not going to.
The hard part is, and Justin's career here is more than likely done, because and I understand that now, we're talking about there is no, doesn't look like there's going to be surgery on the thumb, so that's the positive thing. But like, he's out for a bit, and they're going to make a change here of this. And I think, Luke does have a good question here, and it is something that we want to that I wanted to address. Like, when you look at the same game, right? Same game as we played. The biggest difference is that Bagent we went from 2.5 seconds of Justin holding on the ball to 2.15 seconds on Bagent. Bagent hitting his first read 83+% of the time, meaning he looked at the first guy, saw it was there, and took it. What do we see with Justin more often than not? The first read may be there, but he's going to wait for someone to come open deep first. And by the time he gets back to the first thing, the first person, that is no longer open. In the NFL, not for long is over as it done. Guys are not open for long. If you don't hit them when they're open through your progressions, you're going to miss things. It worked for a half against Denver, and then it didn't. It kind of worked for a half against Washington, and then it didn't. So they never truly made these changes. They just were really efficient in the early first half, and go. Like, that's it. But like, when you see comments like this, John, yeah, we should get under center. But part of the reason they keep doing shotgun is because they want to give Justin chances to see the field, to read the defenses ahead of time, and make things happen. So you've kind of created this scenario now where you have to be in shotgun to give him that extra help, which then gives you the worst snaps that we can do. And as someone who was such a hardcore believer in Justin and wanted him, and I made a big deal of that was the first autographed jersey that I added here to the basement. It devastates me to see him struggle and not grow the way that he hasn't grown here. But at this point, you have to be done with him for his own sake and for yours, because I don't know anymore what you can expect from him as a growth.
Well, and then that's you get past that, and it's going to be so interesting to see how this unfolds, because I'm on record of saying that I'm not moving off of Justin for Drake May. And go ahead.
The hard part is, and that's why I think he's done here, because I think they're going to give Bagent at this point a long rope, and if they see anything sort of out of him, we kind of made this joke about Sanborn, right? Like, he was good enough to not, in times past, he was good enough that you could see this team not signing another middle linebacker, that you just give him that and move on. If Bagent shows you some things over the next couple of weeks against defenses that really aren't the greatest, could I see the Bears going, no, man, we'll just draft Marvin, we'll just draft Olu, or whoever else it is, and then we'll roll out with him? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm not saying that I believe in him in this regard, but I'm just saying everything we've seen in our history has always been, once we get a guy in this building, Caleb Haney, and all these others, we're going to ride that guy until he absolutely proves that he cannot, and then we'll make the change.
Yeah, I mean, that I was the guy banging the drum for them to draft Bagent. Yeah, I wanted the quarterback late in the draft and stuff like that, but I would be floored if Ryan Poles moved off of Justin to tie his wagon to Tyson Bagent under the
I sadly
circumstances.
wouldn't.
Yeah, I would be stunned, but hey, it's the Bears. I mean, you have to. It's 100% got to be in play because they're that inept. I mean, but holy shit, that would be. Whew, that would be. He would have to play at an amazing level for the next 11 games. I mean, holy shit, that I just can't see that happening.
Well, and I want to highlight this one, and from Frank Hacks, thank you so much. I think you're correct, but and he absolutely does. But the other interesting thing to fall here is before the 31st, do they move on from him? Do they do they just say like, hey, Bajan shows you something in one game or two games?
I don't think
Do
he
they?
can.
I wouldn't do it,
Yeah.
but nothing at this point would sit down and shock me at all that this franchise
Well,
could see this guy throw 16 interceptions but be really close and then be like, oh
I,
yeah, we're
I mean,
in
if you're Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham, and that is your move, and Tyson Bagent goes out there and shows you absolutely nothing, and then you're drafting 4th and 6th overall in the draft, then I mean, if I'm the fucking owner, as inept as George McCaskey is, I'm going DEFCON 5 on everybody at that point.
Yeah, but that's the difference. DEFCON
Yeah.
2 for you
Yeah.
in real life is DEFCON 5 for McCaskey.
Yeah.
They don't I'm sure that they are wonderful grandparents, wonderful sweet people. I'm sure they're the type that give kids the full-size candy bars at Halloween, and thank you, Frank, very much for that. But they're they're not gonna that's not who they are. They're not competitive at all.
No,
Eh,
I get it. I
And
get it. But
and
I'm
we all know, like, if you have kids, if you have multiple kids, right? One of your children is as competitive as can
oh
be.
yeah.
And
Yep.
one of your kid could care less and is more than happy to let your other person have the win just so you can say something nice. And that's what the McCaskies are. There's I for those of you who've never watched Letterkenny on Hulu, it's wonderful, but there's a show, Shoresy, it's all about hockey, and one of his phrases is the kids don't hate to lose. It's not that you need to love to win. To be competitive, you have to hate
Yeah.
to lose. And this whole organization doesn't hate losing enough. It's kind of this like, oh gee willikers, we're so close,
Yeah.
we'll
Oh
come by and do
shucks.
it. Yeah,
Let's
and look at
increase ticket prices, and
yeah,
that's there.
and look at it in our lifetime. Like how long we held on to Wanstead an extra year or two before
But
when we
that's
should have.
I almost
Jerron.
I almost said that immediately to start to show off cars is you wanna get to the point where you're the team that moves on a year too early rather than a year too late. And the Bears haven't even been a year too late franchise. They've been a 2 years too late
Oh,
franchise most of the time. And
yeah.
that is not sustainable if you
No.
want to be relevant. And they have not been relevant.
It went back to Lovey, and it was completely wrong at the point that they fired Lovey, because he had that 10-6 season, and we have obviously struggled since then. But you should have done it the 2 years earlier, I believe it was, when you were done. Like you were, it was after the 11-5 season when you went 8-8 and you completely choked. That should have been your time to do it. And instead, you wait one more year for no apparent reason. John Fox, we knew was bad. The fact that he had 3 years here was asinine. Nagy should have been gone after year three. We gave him a year four. Like we're we're continuing to make all of these same mistakes, rinse and repeat. And everybody, I had hoped, because I thought Kevin Warren, wouldn't come here without statements of power, that he would be allowed to make the
Right.
change. The fact that no one has been fired yet at any level is awesome. There's what change? What change have we forced? Nothing,
None.
because we don't want to pay coaches to not be here. That's still a thing.
Well, there's no accountability
None.
here in Chicago. I mean, you see it with Chase Claypool. You saw the way that unfolded. But then, Cody Whitehair, you have your offensive coordinator come out today and say that he's an absolute stud. I'm like, what?
He was 5 years ago, and I hate to
And
break it to you.
even then,
it's
I'm not calling him an abs. I would have called him a nice player that you
But that's
can.
5 years.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just,
You're telling me that he's going to start over Ja'Tyre Carter
well,
this next week?
it's
You know what I mean? Like,
but
why?
you're 1-5, and you're starting what is he, 31 or 32, and then you're
It was a
starting
shell. A
right. And
shell.
so you're a 1-5 team, and you're starting 2 30-plus-year-old journeyman offensive linemen that neither of which will even be on the roster next year, and you're 1-5. Why?
And
This Cars, it doesn't happen anywhere else. It just doesn't.
it does, but this was Detroit until Campbell came around. This was Cincinnati before Marvin Lewis came around. And in each one of those instances, I don't know if folks remember, when Marvin Lewis came on board to the Bengals, he made them revamp everything. It was part of his contract. They added more scouts, they added everything to change that culture. We changed the names, we don't change the structure, we don't change the pecking order. And regardless of what everybody says, and the amount of times that we continue to hear, like, the McCaskies don't interfere, they don't interfere, the answer to that is they do, because they refuse to allow people to pull the trigger and spend some of this money to get rid of people when they can't function. And it's a repeating thing, and I know it's a little doom and gloom, and to be honest, I am excited to watch Bagent this week. I'm
Oh,
excited
I
because I
am
like the way
too.
that
Right.
but
There's tools there. That's exactly why. Cars, this is forever. The Bears in this position would be moving on to Nathan Peterman. They'd be moving on to
it's the
Steve
one positive.
Stenstrom. Right.
The one positive is that 3 weeks ago, they made that switch from Peterman as a number 2 to
Yeah.
Bagent as the number 2. You're absolutely right. But it's just infuriating to me, because in the end, if you look at some of these other franchises, they're going to make changes mid-season. They're going to remember, they had to hold Lovey hostage to basically fire Bob Babich as a
Right.
defensive coordinator.
Yeah. Bullet Bob.
That's nobody else. We just don't make these changes. So you're just going to keep trotting out the same thing. And even if I sit down and get excited about the game that Bagent has this week,
The
let's
game
say
plan is going to change the next week.
thank you. It's going
Yeah.
to go right back to this. They're like, okay, we did it that way. Now we can go back to do it the way that I want to do it. This is Mike Martz without the pedigree all over again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change my scheme for the players. The players have to change for my scheme. We've done this our whole lives. And it just gets so depressing. And you could see it in all these different comments. Like, you look at, like, Bears, I'm at a loss for words again. Bears fan Goomba. Yeah, well, I'm at a loss for words, because here we are again. We were here last year, same time.
Yeah,
The
you
year
didn't.
before.
If I would have told you back in June that the Bears were going to start out 1-5 and starting an undrafted free agent heading into the Vegas game, you would have been like, "Nah, man, come on,
No,
it's crazy.
it's a
crazy
lost
talk."
it's a lost season at this point. when you look at something like what Gary here says, and thank you, Gary. Yeah, we don't have that mentality to kill or be killed, right?
Oh, no. And I think people misunderstand when Phil says that you have to be maniacal. He's not saying that he needs to pick up a cooler and smash it over a player's head and rip his helmet off. That's not what he's saying, but it's that mentality that you can't sit up in front of your players and say every single down counts. Every inch of that football field matters if you don't live that mentality every day. And the Bears do not live that mentality. I don't want to hear Eberflus say that details matter and we turn over every rock. They don't. They do not. They
No.
don't have that Mike Tyson mentality where it's fuck you, George, go back up to your office. You brought me here to win football games, and I'm going to do that. I can't do that if you're down here. You go up there, you let me do. That's exactly what they need. And I know, Cars, you're on the opposite end of this spectrum that I am, but Harbaugh knows the fucking warts here. He knows where the fucking bodies are hidden. He knows where the bones are. And I have a feeling that he would be the guy that would say, fuck you, George. Go back upstairs or go sell some tickets like you did before. Let me do my thing. And it's why Bruce Arians isn't here. It's why they tried to
Jim
fuck
won't
over
be here
Dave
either.
McGinnis. What's that? Yeah, well, it very well could be.
It's why Chris Ballard isn't here.
Yeah.
And granted that sort of worked out in our favor, but we don't want, do you remember all those years ago when we'd hear about Virginia, who every year at the beginning of training camp would sit down and meet with the team and talk about Bears history and what a great moment that was, and how cool. It is important, but also, like, we romanticize the hell out of the franchise that we've been. And again, if you look at what I said on Twitter,
I
we've
hear
been
you.
shit.
Cars, you know how it is. You can respect your elders and your grandparents, and when they're talking about the good old days, it can be fine. When you're talking in front of the best NFL, professional football players, they couldn't name 6 players from the 85 Bears, probably.
No.
That
They
so
might
it
struggle to name people from the 2006 Bears.
Right. That's my point. And I always have to laugh. Why did you come to Chicago? And I swear, if you sign in Chicago, I feel like they give you a rundown and they say, we want you to hit these bullet points. Talk
Oh,
about the
it's cookie
history
cutter.
and the tradition and all of that bullshit that doesn't matter. I know this doesn't matter, and I've said it 100 times that Tony Medlin doing the fucking lame ass, George Hallis wore this same. I would say, get the fuck. I'm going to go pick out my own hat. I don't need the script B hat because George fucking Hallis wore it. That means very little in the grand scheme of things. I'm here to win fucking football games, not to put on a script B hat to have George McCaskey say, oh, isn't that exactly what we need? I mean, fuck this. This franchise is so ass backwards. The more you talk about it and the more you sit down and analyze it, where's your confidence level that Kevin Warren's going to do what's right?
I don't. That if we don't do it in season, I don't think it matters. And the reason being is there is no confidence, and nor should there be right now, because they've done nothing to earn this. We everybody by now saw at the beginning of the season the tweet of, if football teams played a baseball schedule, here's their last 162 games. And the Bears were fourth worst behind the New York Jets, the Cleveland Browns, and I believe that, or ahead of the Jets, Browns, and Houston Texans. I believe. No, it wasn't even the Texans. It was someone else. The Detroit Lions have been a better franchise than us by a handful of games. The Cincinnati Bengals have been a better franchise than us. When you look at these franchises that we often ridicule and mock, I sat down and laughed when they signed Dan Campbell to a 6-year deal, and he looked terrible his first year and a half until the game we all showed up, and then all of a sudden that team clicked, and now he looks like the guy.
Yeah.
The confidence. This is at a point where you have to earn that confidence. Hallis, Butkus, Sayers, Walter, all wonderful players, but saying their name isn't going to be some magic eraser that is going to erase the fact that you have the last 10 years a sub 40% winning record.
Yeah.
Not even close to what it is. I think you're something like 62
right.
and
And where
100.
is it trending to, Cars?
And it's
On your
getting
graph.
worse.
It's getting
Yeah.
worse, right?
Like, you look the last 3 years, you are, what is it? 10 wins and 30 losses.
Right. And that's
One out of
my
3.
point. I texted you and Ryan Cox earlier today, and my thought process is if Kevin Warren says fuck everybody, see ya, I'm not gonna bat a fucking eye on it.
No.
I'm really not going to, because I can look at Ryan Poles and look at some things that I agree with, but overall, what is his, if you are in a courtroom and he's got to take the stand and plead for his job, what the fuck does he put up for you? The draft picks and the cap space? I mean, lots of people can do that. I can trade the number 1 pick and get a fucking pretty good return on it. Angelo Joe Marino from Wallingford, Connecticut could trade the number 1 pick and get a pretty good return on it.
Including another Angelina Jolie cutout,
Yes,
most likely,
exactly.
as part of it.
But my point is, I feel like they're going to launch everybody underneath the front office. They're going to give Poles the benefit of the doubt and say, well, we got to let you get your quarterback and move forward. But if they're all gone, I'm dabbing Kevin Warren and being like, you know what? I'm fucking proud of you that you're not wasting another fucking year by just blind faith and saying, you know what? Pioli loves it. If that's the case, go back to Kansas City and work, Ryan, because you've fucked a lot of stuff up.
So I'm with you. I would not sit down and be upset if they fired everyone. I would completely understand. I am super upset still about the way that the reports have come out about how we've hired the staff and how we allowed, because again, it is Trace Armstrong, a former Bear who has good relationships with the McCaskey family and was able to finagle what it looks like a package of this. Because if at any point 2 years ago you told me that the final 3 in the running for the Bears head coach is a guy who's been out of football for 2 years in Jim Caldwell, it is Dan Quinn, who has been passed over quite a bit and really showed that once Shanahan left the staff to run his own thing, he couldn't do shit, and Matt Eberflus, and nowhere on that interview list was McDaniel. Nowhere on that interview list was Kevin O'Connell. Nowhere on that list were any guys under the age of like 50 or 60. Like, this has become a young man's game. When you look at coaching staffs overall, when you talk about who you think the best ones in the NFL right now at a head coaching level, McVay is still there. He was 35 when he got hired.
Yeah.
McDaniel is there. This is Mike, not McDaniels, the moron we're going to face this week. He was young and under. Sirianni in Philadelphia was young. I still am going to be fascinated to watch his career, but fine.
I'm not sold on
Neither am I, but
they
like
have a
you
ton
look
of talent, but I'm
and when that staff gets pulled apart, and we're seeing some of that happen now because it's not the same Philadelphia team to begin with.
They could be on a 2-game losing streak here very, very shortly.
Quickly.
Yeah.
Zach, the guy in Cincinnati, for all his Zach Taylor, has some warts as well because they can't add an offensive line. But when you look at where this game is going, we didn't interview D'Amico Ryans, who is killing it in the Texans with a team that is less talented than ours. And their player, CJ Stroud, has made leaps in 6 games that our quarterback hasn't made in 40 games.
Right.
So
Yeah.
what gives us any hope that we're going to do this? Because in the end, it's going to be the same name.
Yeah. So John Gray says, "Way to tick. Weren't we praising polls for the plan? If Justin doesn't work, you have picks to work with." We did. It was smart, but I can't go
That's why we
overboard.
keep him.
Well,
That can't be why we keep
yeah,
him.
that can't be the thing because you had the number one pick, and everybody. I know Phil was thinking different, but I wasn't drafting Bryce Young number one. I mean, if I was in the quarterback game in
And I had a
2023,
line.
yeah. Well, if I was drafting a quarterback this year, CJ Stroud would have been my quarterback, and I'm not. That's not, me
Or
looking
Anthony
back with
Richardson.
rose-colored.
Yeah.
It's just I'm not a believer in Bryce Young is going to be sustainable because of his frame. But overall, that you can't sit up on the stand and say I deserve to be here because I traded the number one pick to give us a parachute the next year because
Because I messed up in the staff that I allowed to develop the
right.
quarterback.
And Cars, the more and more this goes on, the more and more it really seems like Trace Armstrong is at the epicenter of all this. You know what I mean?
But that goes back to the ownership
To
issue.
the good old boy network, right?
And we hear it time and time again. Like I say this many times, so forgive me for repeating myself. Part of the reason that Dick Duran stuck around as much as he did was because he went to church every week with the McCaskey family and they got so close to him, they wanted him to succeed. You keep seeing all of this. It just keeps repeating. History keeps repeating itself without any positives. As sacrilegious as this is, we talk about that Dick Butkus team. They won Dick.
Right. Yeah, they were terrible. They won one game, right?
They were awful.
Yeah. Well, Joe, that's not what we're saying at all. And I know you're probably an 85 diehard, and that's great. We're not saying fuck George Halas. We're saying that today's player isn't. It's very, very. I shouldn't say none of them. It's very, very rare for any player to say, "Oh, I want to come to Chicago because of their history and their tradition." When their recent history, and when I say recent, I'm talking going back 40 years, has been that of a completely inept franchise. I mean, it's to the point where a lot of these players' fathers were, little kids that probably don't even remember the 85 Bears.
Do you see that banner over my shoulder?
Yeah.
This banner is every NFL championship and Super Bowl we have won. We have won since I've been alive, one. From the point in time my dad was alive, we had won 2 additional. Like for the storied franchise where we talk about it, yes, there's history. There's been so many important players. There's been so many important innovations all these years ago. But what have we innovated since the 46 defense? When have we had an offense that can score at any point? Like we always have this talk. Offenses since 2000, their importance has torn off. Yes, it really helps to have a good defense. But if you can't score, if you can't be a threat, you don't have a chance. And what we have done since we've been here is we sit down, we talk about Hallis, we talk about the 60 Bears, we talk about the 80, we talk about running, we talk about having a good defense, and that's how you win. We didn't win that frequently. There's it's not a Hallis trophy that you get at the end. As important as he is, as important to this franchise as he is, as important as he is to the Packers themselves, because they wouldn't exist if he didn't give them money. It doesn't mean anything that it doesn't mean that we don't think it's important as fans. We absolutely do. But you do not reach a 23-year-old kid or a 25-year-old kid talking about shit that happened in the 60s and the 50s and the 40s. It just doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that the field goal was right at the goal line at that point in time and players would run into it trying to score plays. Nobody cares about that. You ask these guys who their favorite players are when they're entering, it's not anyone from that generation.
No, I mean they're gonna say Lamar Jackson and players like that. It just is what it is. The Bears. Listen, I understand honoring your history, but it can't be everything to a modern NFL franchise in 2023. And that's where, I mean, come on. That's where they are. And
We
they've
should just hug a 8-track player, a cassette player, and hope to God that they'll come back at this point. And we'll get back to dial-up internet, so all of my AOL CDs that I still probably have in a box somewhere.
That's true
And
right there.
Joseph, you've nailed it.
Yeah.
Like these things, they are important, and it's important to tell these players the history of the Bears so that they understand where their fans are coming from and why the fans are so passionate. But now this is a mic drop.
Yeah.
If all we do is live off the old and talk about that, we don't what are we doing? What are we doing? What is different today versus any season after the 2006 Super Bowl attempt?
Right.
Nothing. What have we done? We've done in my lifetime. As much as I would love to see Peanut hit the Hall, I don't think he's going to make it. Hester should make it. But in my lifetime, what Hall of Fame players have we drafted? Brian Urlacher.
Yeah.
Devin Hester.
Yep. No, I hear you. Who's the last fantastic player on offense that we drafted?
Bernard Berrien.
Matt Forte would probably
Matt Forte.
be the,
Yeah.
It'd have to be him. But that's the thing. And so Phil Emery's, what was his first pick?
Oh.
Who was his first pick? Was it Kyle Fuller or was it Kyle Long?
Kyle Long, I believe.
So it was Kyle Long, but I understand even with Ryan Poles, and I the farther away that we get from this, and Kenneth, I brought it up with him last night too. I still go back to the Josh Lucas comment that they improved things for Fields, but did they go above and beyond and say, we are all in, we're doing everything in our power to surround this kid with everything? And Josh Lucas, no, they didn't. There's a ton of gray area there. And why is that? It's because he's not their guy.
The roster was so barren that instead of fixing it as a whole or one specific side.
It was Shea McClellan.
Oh, that's right. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm gonna cry. But instead of to your point, doing that, they sprinkled a little bit everywhere. So they took this whole offseason was that they just made the assumption that Fields was going to make a leap. They just went through the assumption that that was going to happen and that was going to change everything. And we don't invest in the offensive line. We don't until recently. We don't invest in quarterbacks until recently. We don't draft wide receivers. We don't draft skill position players early on. Most of my life has been you draft defensive players and in cornerbacks and linebackers and defensive linemen. And the league has moved to offensive linemen, wide receivers, and quarterbacks. I as a person and Shane as a person love our history. Part of the reason that we are fans is that
100%.
history. But history, if you refuse to acknowledge it, if you refuse to accept what has changed and that it has changed, then your history is going to hold you back. You can't say you're the best franchise because of your history when you haven't won a Super Bowl in 38 years.
Yeah, and if I told you that Ryan Poles came here as the GM, and I understand he didn't have a first-round pick his first year, but so you drafted 2 players in the secondary to start off your drafting in round 2, and then you drafted Velus Jones in round 3, who I didn't hear of anybody throwing support to that pick the night of the draft. I know I was pissed, and anybody can look back on it that night. And I mean, I believe Matt Waldman was on live with us, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't get that. Why you're drafting whose upside is a gadget player? You're drafting him. What did he go, like 71st overall? I think in the 3rd round.
71st.
But so his first 2 picks,
7th pick of the 3rd round.
Right. So you draft a corner and a safety and a wide receiver. Well, then you come around. Yes, you did get your offensive tackle, but then it's right back to defensive tackle, corner, defensive tackle. To your point, Cars, is what you're saying. Yes, corners are a premium position, but it's just hard to justify with me because of where the NFL is today.
We're in the middle of basically like Stockholm syndrome, where we're now identifying with our abusers and our captors. Like we're making excuses for all of this. And look, I'm going to continue to watch this team. I'm going to continue to support the team. I'm going to continue to hope. But the idea of hope is so different because they haven't earned the right for me to count on them to make these moves.
Right. Yeah. And so Bill just reminded me that I brought this up last night. So 1998, you draft, and I know it's a completely different NFL then, but
it was starting a shift in that era already.
But my point is 1998, you draft, they wanted Randy fucking Moss. That's who they wanted. I have that on pristine authority that was the direction they were going. And I can share that story again sometime later if there's people that didn't hear it, or if there's enough people that want to hear it, I can share it tonight. But so you draft a running back. What was Enos? 4th overall? 5th overall in 1998. And he's a contract holdout. And guess what? He doesn't start. 2005.
Cedric Benson.
You go out of your way to sign a young ascending running back in 2004 in Thomas Jones. Or wait, did they sign? They
traded for him from Arizona, I believe.
No, he was a free agent because he was in Tampa. Right. He was in Tampa.
That's right.
He has a free agent signing in Tampa. But so then You draft Cedric Benson in 2005, and guess what? He's a contract holdout, and he doesn't start.
And the next year, you just hand him the keys and trade Thomas Jones. You don't even get a pick straight up. You trade your second round pick and Thomas Jones to move up 30 picks or something like that in the second round. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't remember Benson saying that he didn't want to come here. I don't remember that part, but even then I remember him getting drafted and he was, very emotional because he thought that he should have went, higher. That was the Ronnie Brown Cadillac Williams
year
draft.
yeah.
And the Bears essentially, I don't want to call him a plotter, but he's, he wasn't a 4-4 guy. We'll just say that, but but then you see where you get into this rut, Cars, because they 2000 right after they made their Super Bowl appearance, 2007 draft, they made a great pick, Greg Olsen. We get it, but then after that, everything changed. That like the franchise got cocky. It seemed like followed up with Dan Bazine, didn't play. Michael Okwo
pre-injured offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Who every other team had red flagged. Chris Williams wasn't going to get drafted. Gabe Karimi had red flags for medical. We drafted both of them. Guess what? Medical.
Yeah. Exactly. But it's, Joaquin Iglesias, 3rd round pick, didn't play. Pool jumper, Jerron Gilbert, played 5 games in the NFL as a 3rd rounder. You trade a 2nd round draft pick for Gaines Adams. And I know that's out of their control, but he died at 26 in his sleep. And he wasn't worth a second round draft pick at the time.
Anyway.
He had flopped in Tampa. But then you wonder why you weren't better and more consistent in those Lovey years, because it was just, but they're doing the same things now. I mean, it's like we said, should we be going back to Alshon and Matt Forte? And Alshon's last great year, I mean, he had that big touchdown year in Philly when they won the Super Bowl, but he didn't light the league on fire. Bernard Berrien left and went to Minnesota. I don't think he ever had a 1,000-yard season.
Never
in his career. And Matt Forte, you're talking about Matt Forte. And
nice.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And that's just the frustration. You have to change with the times, and we don't. We never have.
Yeah.
Our team is run and owned by the people who just want to see a good effort, and gee willikers, if it doesn't work out, gosh darn it, that's too bad. We'll go out there and we'll try again.
Right.
And that works in kindergarten sports. It does not work in professional sports.
Yeah. So, well, let me ask you this, guy. Do you have any more stuff to put up?
No, because I don't even want to. Let me just show one thing, because this should be a winnable game here against the Raiders, because the Raiders have only scored 20 points once. They played a really easy schedule. It's basically like the 8th easiest schedule to start. The defense has been better the last 2 weeks, but it's really against not good offense. Josh Jacobs is under 3 a carry. Literally, the only 3 people that have over 10 receptions are the 3 people listed here. Michael Mayer is the only other person that has 10 or more targets. And of their 5 defensive turnovers, 3 of them are Jordan Love related. So, normally we could be talking about how this is a winnable game, and it should be a winnable game. And with how bad Josh McDaniels is, they should win this game. I have zero faith that they'll do it. I can't.
Yeah, no, I get it. Well,
that's it.
Carrie, do you have Andy Reid? I mean, do you have Alex Smith? Do you follow that up with Patrick Mahomes. It's just Matt Eberflus does not deserve. He's the worst head coach in the history of this franchise right now.
And I hate to break it to you, Kerry, they did turn it around right away. Andy Reid took over a 2-14 team, and they went 11-5 the next year, and have only had one season under 10 wins, which was the following year when they went 9-7. 1 year. Yeah. They turned it around from 2-14 to 11-5.
And Cars, in the last 23 seasons, how many double-digit win seasons have we had since the year 2000?
Oh, it's 6.
6. And we're supposed to believe that Matt Eberflus, what he has showed us, how completely inept he has been as a head coach. He'll get another gig as a defensive coordinator. That's fine. That's who he is. If, like I said, to go back to the court thing, if Ryan Poles is up there pleading for his job, I can at least have a conversation with him about it.
Yeah, because I think
what's Matt Eberflus? What is he standing on? I didn't have a meltdown in the locker room. Well, no, but your defensive coordinator you hired was doing some shady shit.
Who knows what he was doing? And we will never find out.
Oh, it'll.
But you know what I mean? Like
what you and I talked about.
Yes.
We will talk about again.
When it comes out fully. Which
I have an update. I'll text you after, but yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's just, it's crazy, man.
Shane, you asked a great question. How many times have we had double-digit wins? How many times have we had double-digit losses? Same time frame. 9.
Yeah, 9.
We're going to have our 10th season with double-digit losses this year.
Yeah.
How many times of those double-digit win seasons have they been back-to-back? Once.
Yep.
Guess what? We had a 4-year run in a row with double-digit losses, and we're about to have a 3-year stretch with double-digit losses. For as great as Lovey was, we went 11-5, 13-3, and then 7-9, 9-7, 7-9, right back and forth.
Yeah, and how many? I mean, right now with Carolina's pick, you're around what, 52% chance to have the number 1 pick. So you're above 50%, and with 11 games left.
Yeah, and it's going to get worse.
Yeah, and you play Carolina. And what would that? Wouldn't it be Chicago to get fucking boat rate? No, to get beat by Carolina.
Oh yeah.
To let that be their first win. Carolina beats you by 20, and Bryce Young has 4 touchdowns. You know what I mean? That's
he's showing up the number 1 like Mahomes did that year, right? Like, yeah. And it's I hate to get so depressed and going on this as a part, but it's, when we sit down and you look at just all the history where it is, I'm not ever going to tell anyone how to fan. Everyone needs to choose and fan the way that it works for them. But to have any expectations of this team, of this franchise moving forward, you can't. You just can't. There's nothing that has been earned. This is like you have somebody who keeps stealing from you.
Yeah.
And you keep putting money in your piggy bank and allowing them to steal it from you at this point.
Yeah, but let's rip through some of these.
Oh, yes.
We'll start right up here at the top. Kevin Warren needs to fire everyone. All these people who have been part of the organization for generations are worthless. Strip it down. Cars, Bears, football is pee on my leg and tell me it's right.
Care Bears football.
Yeah, Care Bears. Yeah. But that's the thing, and this is he has went through supposedly everybody, in the organization and, talk to them and probably giving them the benefit of the doubt 1 year to let them prove what they told him. And it's time to flush the toilet and get rid of some of these people.
That's a great analogy. It's time to flush the toilet.
And, we've talked to I don't want to, like I said this last night. I don't think Chris will mind that I'm sharing it with it. And he's like, we don't know Kevin Warren. Chris knows Kevin very well. And he goes, if you guys think that Kevin is afraid to blow shit up and say, you didn't do your fucking job, you're gone. He goes, that's exactly who Kevin Warren is. So we're going to get our chance to see exactly who he is. And if it's status quo, then I'm fucking done on Kevin Warren.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Then I don't believe you. You can't look at a piece of shit and then over in the corner in your living room and then say, why the fuck does my living room stink? And you just leave it there. And that's exactly what this franchise has been, is a piece of shit over in the corner of your living room. And then George is like, well, you know what? You know what we're going to do? We're going to change the curtains. We're not going to pick up the shit over in the corner. We'll change the curtains. That's going to make everything better. No, that's not the way that you do it.
If folks didn't see it, and I want to pull it up real quick, just so everybody understands why I'm so frustrated. Since Lovey left, we are 65 and 103. I mean, since Ditka left, we were 214 and 258. Still not winning. But since Lovey left, which is basically a decade at this point, 65 and 103 and getting worse. If he doesn't fire everybody, if he doesn't make these moves, if he uses a word salad and talks about culture and how we are the envy of the league, and other than having wins and quarterbacks, we've done everything right, then we know, you can change the faces every time. It doesn't matter. It's going to be the same thing until they actually desire to win more than anything else.
Yeah, E-King, you're right. It was supposed to be flushing the toilet, but if you're thinking that cap space is going to be an issue, it's the Bears have, what is it, Cars, 94 million?
And with ease to get into a lot more.
Oh, yeah. Well. I mean, yeah.
You get rid of Whitehair and Eddie Jackson, which you can do very easily, and all of a sudden you are well into the hundreds.
Yeah, so I mean, that's not, and cap space isn't going to turn this team around. It's drafting impactful, franchise-altering players. That's
which we see that they've done, but they, to your point, for everything that I'd like to say nicely about Ryan Poles' draft classes and what he's done this at defensive back positions and others, and not the positions that truly are more important in today's NFL. And he did that potentially to kowtow to his defensive coordinator, head coach. And it could end up costing him his job. And at that point, he's no one to blame but himself.
So to Bears Live 96, it was telling of the shot Fields took on the sideline from Hunter. Flus and team did not rate. Yeah, there is that picture out there. He's laying down there, and the fucking head coach just walks and does nothing. I know if I'm on the sideline, my fucking quarterback gets hit, I'm gonna be the first fucking guy there. And that's we talked about it. This is what Phil is talking about when you need a guy that's maniacal, because when you go back and watch the fucking tape and you see 4 of your guys standing there, then you rip that motherfucker apart in front of the entire team and say, that is not good enough. That is not what we do here. Set the fucking tone. Don't get your teeth kicked in and just say, well,
I tried.
Try to get them later. That's the mentality that we have. We're the kid sitting there getting punched in the fucking face, and he's saying, ow, 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 every fucking time. That's who the Bears are.
There is no culture.
No, there's not.
Well, there is. It's just a losing culture.
It's a shitty one.
Yeah.
Gary chiming in again. Shane, the Bears are the one kid who peaked in high school and living off memories. It's sick.
Al Bundy.
You mentioned the hat. They like to give new coaches, burn it. Didn't help the other clowns win. It's the truth. If you think a script B hat is going to mean anything, I get the history and I get wanting to respect. You can honor and respect it. Wearing a fucking script B hat on the sideline ain't fucking working. How about that? It's not working. You're not honoring George Halas by going out there and guess what? Getting your fucking teeth kicked in every week on a team with no culture. Ben Ricketts said it to Phil, and he hit it out of the park. George McCaskey would not hire George Halas to coach this team because he's too much of a hard ass. He's a guy that would talk back and speak his mind. He wouldn't sit back and say, oh, you know what, Ginny? I'll see you at church this Sunday. And I'm not disrespecting people that go to church, but come on, let's win some. Let's be a respectable fucking franchise. And we're not. You're a punching bag. You're a running joke. That's what you are. That's what you've built, Ryan Poles. That's what you're coaching, Matt Eberflus. That's what you own, George McCaskey. It's on you guys. It's disgusting.
Oh, it's terrifying.
Yeah. Oof. Kerry, I appreciate you and love you, brother, but not wanting a coach change, no. If they don't change the fucking coach, wrap it up because you don't change from the depths that Matt Eberflus is at right now. This ain't Jimmy Johnson who stripped it down and who was a fucking maniac behind the scenes making trades. Do you remember how excited we were about having the number one waiver claim?
We did shit with it.
Nothing. It meant nothing. And even now, are you turning over every stone, bringing in people to work out, to figure out, when I talk, not to get you fired up, but I talked to Greg Braggs and he's like, the problem is at center, every one of them, Whitehair, Patrick, Kramer, every one of them at camp was doing the same shit with the snaps, with them being high, with them being left, with them being right. So what does that mean? That's a fucking accountability issue with the head coach, with the offensive line coach, and with the fucking general manager.
Your head coach, when asked why you moved away from Cody Whitehair, refused to mention the snaps. Refused to mention the snap. Like we all don't have fucking eyes and couldn't see how bad it was. When your culture is just to sit there and not be honest, like Cody's been in this league a long time. If you sat up there and said, look, Cody was having a hard time getting the ball where it needed to be on these snaps and we had to go a different direction, do you really think you're going to lose Cody Whitehair at that point?
No, and that's the thing, Cars. And listen, I think you can be even more aggressive and say, you know what? We appreciate Cody's been a big part of what we've done the past few years. He's been a great Bear. But right now, the way that he's snapping the football isn't acceptable. It doesn't, we need better. So what is he going to do? Go out there and not play well? Because you're not playing well now.
And he hasn't for 4 years, but this
Exactly.
franchise has continued to sit down and be like, "We'll trot him out and he'll go back to being Cody Whitehair of old." It's dumb. He's done. He shouldn't be on the team. And listen, Cody was a fun player for while he was here. He was good. He's not the same guy. He's not a guy deserving of that amount of money. Straight Smoke says he's not a center. Guess what? He's not really much of a guard either.
No, he's mediocre and below. That's at best at guard.
No, and he's not a free agent after the season. But you cut him.
Oh, Cars, you and I
saved $9 million.
You and I were cutting him after June 1st this year. We talked about it.
It was telling that Tevin Jenkins' first game back that they were splitting reps with him and Cody Whitehair at left guard. Yeah. Cody would not be playing if Lucas Patrick didn't get hurt.
So let me ask you this, Cars. On offense, if you were in trouble, who are you going to war with on this team?
Darnell Wright.
DJ Moore.
DJ Moore. If he's healthy, Nate Davis, because Nate has shown quite a bit.
And if he's healthy, Tevin Jenkins. Tevin Jenkins is a no-nonsense guy.
Yeah.
I feel
that's
like.
It. And you know what? Cole Kmet is a no-nonsense and we'll throw down. That's it. I love Darnell Mooney. That's not who he is.
No.
Tyler Scott's not that guy. No, you can't have any of these guys anymore. Who is Jason Kelsey? Who is your Jason Kelsey? Mean son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Undersized, was a later round draft pick. Nobody, you know what? He just scraps. Darnell Wright is the closest. Tevin Jenkins, when he's playing, is the closest. That's it.
I hear you. Yeah.
Frank.
So,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I think Frank, you're right. Like, there's ownership of Justin and there's ownership of the offensive staff. And neither is budging, neither is improving at the rate that it needs to be. I'm telling you now, my belief is that they're going to try to trot him back out in a week or two if he's no surgery. Something's going to happen again and they're going to go right back but it's whatever happens here at the end of the year. This is Justin Fields' last year here in Chicago.
I hear you. Yeah, so we had that one.
Yep.
Appreciate you, Gary. Tyson Bagent throws for 250 and 2 tutties with the Bears win and follows it up with another impressive start. What will we all be saying? I'll be saying, hey, you had a nice couple games, Tyson. Go out and do it again. And in the big picture, you're writing it down in pencil.
There's nothing that you should ink because you're going against the Raiders, the Chargers, who are not a good team. And then you go to New Orleans, who is not a good offense, but is a very good defense. And then you're going to Carolina and then to Detroit, right? Like you've got a pretty simple schedule coming up. And you know, ours would be like, let's get super hyped after he beats 2 bad teams and then, you know, show up against a good team and then just get boat raced.
Yeah, so Ethan Kotz, Ditka once tried to tell Buddy Ryan to call off the Dogs against the Cowboys. Now, if we go up by 3 scores, it seems the coaches feel bad. And I agree. And that is part of not giving a fuck. Listen, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs and you're up by 3 scores and you don't want to take a chance getting your players injured, I get it. You have enough pelts on the wall that you don't need to prove anything. If I am part of the leadership of the Chicago Bears, and if I'm up 3 scores, I said this before on air, Cars, you have your foot on the neck, and when you push down and you hear a bone break, there's more bones down there. Keep fucking pushing. Establish your identity. And if you're playing a team, I say, fuck you. I'll see you in 40 seconds. And it doesn't matter if I'm up by 6, if I'm up by 21. You're a nobody right now. You have no identity. You have a pussy head coach that doesn't want to hold anybody accountable, that wants to openly lie to you, Cars, to me, to every fan here listening, because he's smarter than you. Bullshit.
No, and
Bullshit.
look what Mike McDaniel has done in Miami. 70-20. Yeah, they got beat the next
You
week. Guess
think
what?
that happens here?
No.
No fucking way.
No, and the next week they were beating up on the Giants. Giants had an interception return. They went out and dropped 17 straight points, no questions asked. The next week against Carolina, Carolina jumps out to that 14-0 lead. You know what happens next? They go out and score 35 consecutive points and put that game out.
Yeah.
And they do that over basically a quarter and a half.
Right. And we
sit down and stop running play action because we've got a 10-point lead.
Exactly. And we're up big at halftime in Washington, and there was not a Bears fan that I knew, definitely not in this house with my son and I, that had confidence that the Bears were going to win that game. You were expecting them to blow it, and that is a fucking mentality.
And they tried to.
They did, and that's the point. What is the benefit of scaling everything back? Let it go out there and rip. I mean, build some confidence, but you can't, because your mentality, to use Phil's phrase, you're soft as puppy shit. That's who you are.
In high school, if you were, again, this is how old I am. I had my high school coach used to be coached by Bobby Knight, and we would get a 4-point lead, and he would start throwing up a number on his hand, and that was the amount of times we had to pass before we could shoot the next time.
Yeah.
You would, if you had an open shot and you took it, you were benched because you needed to make the additional pass. That means you could be passing to someone in double coverage, and that person is supposed to take the shot, because that's the level of control. Offense, some of these teams, Kansas City wants to take their foot off the throttle. Miami wants to take their foot off the throttle. You know what? I get it, because they're a team that can turn it back on at any point in time. We have never been that franchise. We have never had that offense where we could turn it off and on. We scored 40 once since 2020. Like, what the fuck?
And Ryan Fraley's got it right. In the country club mentality, it goes beyond the coaches and the team. It spills over into the fans, Cars, because we have been repeatedly punched in the face, where you become numb to all of this, where you see a play on 3rd and 18 and you're like, holy shit, they converted it. You see that shit in the NFL every week, multiple times. And that is something that's put on a highlight package for the Chicago Bears.
And we ignore the fact that 3rd and 18 was because we had 2 offensive penalties, and we keep making those same mistakes because we convert it, because we allow these things to continue to happen. Since Nagy, how frequently are we in 3rd and long because we are penalized franchises on offense that cannot execute?
Look at the way that the game started last week. Sack, then your defense comes out, and before they even snap the fucking ball, you have a penalty. That is your culture. That is coaching. They weren't ready to play, and they had 10 days coming off the biggest win of your shitty career as a coach, Flus.
But even take the next step. You had that sack. What are your next 2 plays? Designated quarterback runs.
Yeah.
Because you have no idea. You ran all of this shit.
Yeah.
Just
3rd and 2, let's go deep. 3rd and 7, let's hand off.
And
that's the mentality.
I'm okay if you do that handoff at 3rd and 7, because you're doing that because you're saying, if we don't get it, we're going for it on 4th down.
Fine. With a direct snap to Cole Kmet.
Yes. But if you're going to make that decision at 3rd and 7 that you're going to run the ball, then you damn well better go for it on 4th down if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And you don't. You have no killer mentality. It goes back to everything. Gee Willikers. The team motto for the Chicago Bears should be Gee Willikers will get them next time.
Yeah. We gave it our best. You know,
We tried, guys.
everybody
we tried.
gets popsicles. Frank, pretty active in the super chat. Tyson will rip the ball and not hold it like JF1. This will help the O-line and receivers look better and be happier. Get rid of the damn ball at 2.7 seconds or less. I'm expecting a lot of jaws to drop. Well, he better get it out because you have an elite pass rusher over there on the other side that can destroy a game very, very quickly.
To Frank's point,
if Darnell Wright is out, it's going to be even harder.
It'll look like Cincinnati early this season.
Yeah.
But to Frank's point, right? Justin Fields last week was 2.5 seconds time to throw. Bagent was 2.1.
Yeah.
Like 0.4 of a second is night and day. And that's why his first reads were so much better. He's going to be a first read guy. And don't, like, everybody's like, he doesn't have the arm strength. Look at that interception. He has arm strength. It is not Justin Fields' arm strength.
Right.
But this should be a plan, just like the previous 2 weeks, where you're hitting the 10 to 19 yard plays. What is Brock Purdy doing? 10 to 20, 10 to 20. The best teams. Tua, I hate his deep ball, but you know where he's pretty good on getting it out on time? 10 to 20. You get the ball in the playmaker's hands, and you make it work.
And who thrives in 10 to 20? Your best offensive weapon.
Both of them.
Yeah,
Mooney
right.
as well.
Yeah.
You had that big play to Mooney, 38. It was a 10-yard play.
Yeah. So thank you, Frank.
Yes, thank you, Frank.
Bill Wagner loves seeing the smartest man get fired
Doesn't
up.
take much.
Yeah,
I can make that happen in about
I'm always very, very quiet and reserved, Bill. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Love you, man. Frank is back again. Smash that like button for these guys. Yeah, absolutely. Get up there. Smash it, please. Thank you, Frank. Kerry Franklin. If he hits with Bagent and gets Carolina's pick, then that is a win for polls. Cars, what do you...
That's hope against hope at this point.
I mean...
You might as well find Aladdin in the middle of the desert.
Right. Hitting on Bagent, he would have to be so out of this realm good.
It would have had to be better than what Purdy did at the end of last season.
Hell yes.
Yeah. It'd have to be what Purdy has done this season.
Yeah.
To make that a thing.
And that's the thing. And he's on your team. He signed a 3-year contract. That's part of it. And you can't say we have Tyson Bagent, and if you have the chance at a quarterback that you deem worthy, pass it up because you have Tyson Bagent, 11 games of Tyson Bagent. That's yikes. You can't run a football team like that.
But to Kerry's sort of defense, it's what we've done.
Oh no, it's true,
and
but
you
brought up the Sanborn thing too, and we all kind of bought into that and thought the same thing. Now, was it the right thing? Right now, it doesn't look like it's paying off, but they have to get more horses in front of them, and the defense has improved. I will give them that. So we'll see. Corn Planner, Cars, give your balls a tug. I guess that's for TTNL After Dark. Thank you, Corn.
That is a Letterkenny reference.
Yeah, okay.
It works.
Mike Anderson, put your question or comment in the chat because we can't see it here, but we appreciate you. Gary is back again. Chaining Cars. You can draft Caleb and Harrison if you slide Tevin back to left tackle. You can draft swing tackle and center in rounds 2 and 3. I mean, everything's in play.
We got to get over this Tevin to left tackle. That ship has sailed. And he even admits that he's enjoying guard at this point in time.
Yeah.
And you can't, let's see where we get at the end of the season, because now we're up to, 2 games where he's played more than 50% of the snaps. It's the one thing that will always be held over him is he's got to finish this season without missing any additional games for you to count on him. I don't think that's going to be happen. And Braxton did not play bad at left tackle when he was healthy. Like we keep doing this where we focus on the 1 or 2 bad plays and we miss everything else. Your best line as of right now is Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, Lucas Patrick, Nate Davis, Darnell Wright from
Right.
left to right.
And my point is, even with Braxton, again, you're
You're right.
not writing him in ink.
No, you're not.
Can't.
No.
Because if you're how this falls, if you're staring at Fashanu there, you're not
You're
like,
making
well,
that
we have
pick.
Braxton. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you.
Fashanu and Darnell Wright, you probably have your bookends for the next 12 years. Or
And
you're
young,
hoping. Yeah, and very, very young.
and very athletic. So I just, when you look at that, it's just different.
And that's the thing, Carr. So let's just say I will be interested to look at the percentages to see, if you don't get number 1 and if you don't get number 2, your percentages for number 3 and
Have to be about 100%
number 4
at this point.
Right, but so let's say you're drafting number 3 and number 4 before we wrap this up. That's going to be fascinating to see.
It's not a good draft for skill position players outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., who I think is your pick at number 3. And to your point, best player available at that point. There's no edge rushers worth that investment.
No, I like Verse. I don't love Verse.
I don't love him 4th overall.
Oh, no. And he's going to be an older rookie also.
Yeah, because he's already 22 and he'll be 23 at that point, and he's not dominating like you want.
I think he's actually going to be a 24. I think doesn't he turn like 20? Won't he be like 24 in like November, December of his rookie year?
So he's a 2000 kid. So yeah, he'll be 23 at the draft. He'll be 24 there.
Yeah.
But to your point though, Shane, in that scenario, your best players available are Marvin and Olu.
Yeah.
And it's not even close, especially with Bowers out for the season, as a tight end, and even a tight end at 4.
And that's a major that's the Darnell Mooney surgery.
That's a potential career limiter move. I won't say ender.
Well, especially at that position with it's terrible. But yeah, and Malik Neighbors is a name that I think that everybody's going to get to know the closer we get to the draft. I know not everybody's into it as much as we are pre-draft, but Bear Truth 9 is 100% correct.
Keon Coleman is another guy that is rocketing up as well. And you look at the catch he made last week and how he high pointed that one armed, like but they're going to be a tier below Olu and potentially Alt at this point in time.
Bill says this $20 is to fund the retirement of Getsy. PowerPoint background, replace it with your kids' art projects.
I'll get
a picture of Bozo next week.
I'll get Aubrey to do a new background for me. I'll have her draw one and we'll scan it in and we'll start to leverage that one.
Yeah, we'll put up Aubrey's artwork because we made Maisie a superstar to lead off our show.
I can't deal with her ego anymore.
Each and every week. Yeah, we might.
Kid is out of control.
We might not be able to afford her next season, Cars. Let's just be
the way honest. Her ego is going. Absolutely, she's getting out of my price range. I might not be able to afford my own kid anymore.
Absolutely, but do you have anything more that you wanna touch on? I know that these shows probably moving forward are not going to be as much.
There's not much like
in season stuff. We're gonna be looking. I think probably what we'll do is we're gonna have to focus in on guys like Darnell Wright and his journey and Jervon Dexter. And I mean, come on, you're 1-5. Can we fucking play these guys? I mean,
if you play Dexter 20 snaps again, go away. that was such a waste because Ed Ingram, it was such a terrible player. It should have been a game for him, and you didn't. Zach Pickens made an incredible play early and then didn't see the field again.
No.
I just don't understand this use. I don't. These are the players that are going to be here in 2 years. Justin Jones is not going to be here.
Right.
So let's focus on the guys that are going to. Um, and again, when you have the player who has 6 pressures last week, an incredible grade, and then you turn around and you play him 20 snaps.
Right. And Ryan, that he was AWOL, not from the way that he played. Cars is saying he just didn't play.
He got next to no snaps. It was at a late level that you were just kind of like, was he injured? And that was not the case. But if you look at it, I want to say like, hold on, I'm looking at it really quickly. Dexter played 16 defensive snaps last week.
Yeah,
Zach Pickens played 10. That's 20, less than 30%.
Yeah, and what were his snaps the two previous Denver and Washington?
So Washington, he had played significantly more. He had played double the snaps. He played 33, so he's at 50% of the available snaps that week. And the week before in Denver, he was, I think, around the same level. So he had been no, the week before at Denver, he was 10 snaps. So they are alternating when they actually play him or not.
So Cody puts this out there in Cars. You and I had shared some stats with you and Ryan. Do you guys think Mooney looks different after his ankle surgery? I feel like he's definitely lost a step or something. I just think that the situation, and I know him and Justin are very, very close, but when you are in a contract year and you're not getting the targets like you expect, or if there's times when you are open, or when you do get the ball thrown to you and you don't catch it yourself, or you turn your body the wrong way.
That Washington catch.
Right. So
it's bad.
before the Minnesota game, if you look back at Darnell Mooney's last 17 games, he's around 534 yards over the last 17 games and a couple of touchdowns. And those are essentially, when you look at his big plays, which is, so if you look at the splash plays, which are plus 20, he has the same amount of splash plays that Cole Kmet does. He's got 9 of them for plus 20 over 17 games. Cole Kmet in his last 20 games has 9 of them over plus 20. Cole Kmet has 1 play of plus 40, as does Darnell Mooney. So they are
not on the same page anymore. No. I don't know what's happened, but they are not on the same page.
Yep. But this is more of the bullshit that the Chicago Bears social media team and the franchise want to cram down your throat is, oh, look, Justin and Darnell are in Hallis Hall at 11:30 at night while everybody else is home, and they're like, no, you go home first. No, you go home first. Well, great. Maybe you should both fucking go, because it's not.
Go get more rest. Maybe you need to sleep more to help your performance.
Yeah, it's not showing up. Frank is back again. Gents, are we going to trade JJ or Bojack before the trade deadline? If we keep losing, would you trade JF1 for a first round pick in this?
I mean, if you get a first round for JF1 at this point, I think you'd take it, but I don't think you're getting that overall.
No.
And I think Jalen has a very good chance of going. Bojack doesn't have any value.
Yeah, and with Jalen, I think you're looking at it. It's got to be a second round pick.
Easily, yeah. You're not getting much, but it's if you haven't signed him and you don't really have the interest in doing it, you're just gonna.
Yeah, and I understand, Eric. And I was kind of listen, I know you want to have, you want to pay your young players, but again, you have to look at it from the business side too. Jalen Johnson is not Ryan Poles' guy. And where has Ryan Poles invested a lot of his draft capital? Into the same position. So is he going to walk away from Terrell Smith to pay Jalen Johnson?
No.
Or are your two outside guys next year going to be Tyreek Stevenson and Terrell Smith if Ryan Poles is here? It's going to be interesting.
Secondary.
But I think it's very, very telling when they asked Jalen Johnson flat out, do you think there's a chance you get traded? And he's like, yeah, I'm not stupid. Yeah, I know the situation. I think that tells you a lot.
Agreed.
Yep. And there you go. Right there. Frank says it.
That's with the way rules are in the NFL, Trayvon Diggs gets burned so many times, but he gets paid because he gets that. We talk a lot about that Philadelphia game and the great defense that Jalen played against
And he
AJ
gave up
Brown, who
180.
still gave up 180 yards. Like,
yep.
There is no such thing anymore as a shutdown corner. Doesn't exist. Sauce Gardner, for all that great rookie season, does not have the same year. It's notoriously different to do it.
And how many games, if you've really watched Sauce Gardner, and I'm here in New York, so they're the local game a lot. There is a lot of fucking times that dude could get flagged that he just didn't. And
it's coming.
It is. You're damn right it is.
This year he's gotten flagged a tremendous amount more than he has.
Those things have a strange way of evening out at the most inopportune time. And yeah, we'll see. But other than that, Cars season 2, episode 27, I think is in the books. We're just about 2 hours in, so
we'll call it.
Get out of here. Nothing from TTNL. No, DDP released The Tape Never Lies to the patrons today. So if you want to check that out, head over to thetapeneverlies.com. Sign up to see his in-depth analysis of the inept Chicago Bears. But he'll show you some good, bad, and ugly. And then, we'll see. Bears versus Raiders this weekend. It's the Tyson Bagent game. Kind of excited to see what he can do. And
I am as well.
There we go. But beyond that, man, Cars keys. We're out of here.
Let's go cry all together when we leave. You're never alone. We should probably start showing. We made this joke before. The suicide hotline number should probably we'll scroll down below.
We'll have a suicide hotline show here. We got 11 games, so we'll have time to fit that in. But see you guys later. We appreciate all you super chatters and all of our patrons for showing up. And guess what? The Bears are bad, but we ain't going anywhere. We're gonna be here with you guys talking about it no matter what. And it's gonna get better at some point. I will promise you that. So talk to you guys later. Bear down.